What does it take to be a man? Well, before we go into that, let's find out why it's important man's on this earth, you know? I mean, what is the purpose? Well, the most obvious would be is that we're here to procreate. We're here to, make sure that we can go ahead and build mankind. Also, we're there needed to provide for families, okay? I mean, it's very important to have families to be able to procreate and so they can build other families. It's also important to have men around to help run their jobs, provide for the family, or start a business, or grow the business so they can provide more opportunity for other people. It's really important. Also, we're there to lead countries, lead counties, lead cities, in basic community. And of course, real important to your local is your local education, your any kind of local programs that are there and events, and the most important, obviously, being your local faith-based organizations. How you can volunteer, or how you could disciple, or how you can just help others. It's important. So, but what do we see today? Unless you've been living under a rock, we're living in a cultural crisis. I mean, it's a crisis. We're seeing that this society here is to break man down. I was thinking about here, not only is this foundation since the 1980s, I'd say, or in the last 50 years, the whole foundation is 180. It's just twisted. Everything that we've built this country on is just being pulled away, taken away, rewritten. It's really sad. So, like we used to always say, what is America? Hot dogs and apple pie. Well, now if I want to go buy that, I'd have to go to the ethnic section in the store to find them. So, in all seriousness, society is here to break man. What it's doing is breaking them, basically, of their will, their production, the responsibilities, the ability to even have children, the desire to have children. They're breaking men down and not even concerned about their future or anybody else's future. The old suicides are shooting their other members or people and then themselves. I mean, this is crazy. So, how do we get here? Well, there's 6 primary agendas that have come by to make this happen. And we're going to talk mainly about the men of our future, which is 18 to 34, the Gen Z. Because that's where some of the most radical statistics are going on for that generation over the last 40 to 50 years has have them enter into this condition. Like, men are not encouraged to be men anymore. They're encouraged to be boys or girls. I mean, that's crazy with all those different sexes and whatever they're doing these days. It's just difficult. In fact, here's an interesting fact. Testosterone has been dropping 1% per year since 1980. So what that means is these boys from 18 to 34 have half the testosterone that their grandfather had. I mean, it's crazy. The thousands of years that mankind's been around, in just the last 50 years, to see that kind of erosion, would say that's a crisis, wouldn't you? Okay? I mean, and put in perspective, the average grip of one of these guys, I mean, I've shaken hands with a few of them myself. They have as much grip strength as their grandmother did 100 years ago. It's just changed. You don't get much grip on your app or your video games, right? So, spur count in the last 50 years has dropped 50% as well. I mean, that's crazy. Probably falls parallel to the testosterone. And there's a lot of verticals for all that happening, but it's happening. Okay? And obesity has increased by 4 times. 4 times has increased over the last 40 years since 1980, actually. So, of course, that pretty relative to lifestyle, what you eat, and, the less testosterone, obviously, is bringing a lot of that. But here's really what's scary. Men in this generation are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than women. Why is that? I mean, you got to really think about that. You know, some of the reasons why here, they're failing to launch. This generation, it's the lowest of any generation in history where people are not moving out of their homes. Over 50% of the people who, over 50% still live at home in an 18 to 34 men range. Over 50%. That's crazy. They don't work. They're not entering the workforce. So you got 7 million men, 18 to 34, that are not in the workforce. Why is that? I mean, dependency. This is the lowest percent ever in the history of, you know, men not working and becoming more dependent on programs, whether it be the government or communities. Here's really what's interesting. 25%, 1 out of 4 men over 40, never have married. Never have married. That's crazy. Or had kids. Well, I should say have kids, know who their kids are. There's a lot of kids growing up without fathers. But what that's coming into is there's more women entering now into college and more women entering into the workforce than men at this point. So obviously over time, that's going to really affect the workforce. You know, what's interesting about that is that 63% of these men are not marrying. In fact, they're single. 2 out of 3 are single and have no intent to be married. They have no desire to get married. Interesting. Another interesting fact is that they're not marrying and having children, because men are not having children. The workforce is becoming more dominant with women, and if the kids are not fathering, and they won't father the children that a lot of these women have, because of the, you know, dysfunctionality of society. These kids are growing up without fathers, and then their kids, if they're having any, are fatherless as well. It's sad. It's the highest ever been in history of kids not growing up with fathers. In fact, here's really what's sad. In this country, if you're a child born today, you're 300% more likely not to have a father than any other country in the planet. That's not much. That's not something you want to boast on. In fact, children growing up with a father are 200% more likely to fail in school. They're 400% more likely to live in poverty. And they're 500% more likely to have some type of emotional disorder, which society is willing to go ahead and medicate you for, which takes even more of the identity of men. It's crazy. So, we're watching Erosion of Man. You know, it's sad because a lot of the men are sitting here, you know, especially us older guys going, you know, what can I do? Or the sadder one is, God's got it under control, or it's part of his plan. Well, these are only statements of ignorance, because that is not the case. I mean, yeah, he's in control of everything, but he makes good of stuff. He doesn't make it bad. We're all got our own choices, and that's what's happening. And we're allowing our choices to be made by what society's telling us. But I'm not going to go into all that. I'm just saying is that the bottom line is, what can we do, right? Well, it's like I said, it's in ignorance. We just need to understand that it's our responsibility, and I mean all our ages. So let's just go back to the roots, right? In Genesis 1:28, I'm going to read it word for word. It says, and God blessed them, which is mankind, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth on the earth. He gave us dominion. Okay? Now, how this is that he is the creator of the universe, who's dominion over everything. Dominion over the whole universe. He creates us in his image to go ahead and work using us to work for his purpose, for his design, for all those things. And we go to Adam and the things that screwed up and all that, and why Jesus is here and all that. All those things we go into, but I just want to talk about specifically why man is on this earth and what our responsibilities are and how we've been letting those responsibilities go and watching things happen and being complacent and being passive about it. And now look what we are today. And this fine, wonderful country, USA. He gave us dominion under his dominion. If we go away from his dominion, then our dominion becomes faulty. It becomes corrupt. It becomes anti-God. Okay? So, let's talk about this how in America, because we're talking about society, we're talking about a culture crisis, we're talking what's happening with men, because this is how it all starts, is from man, you know? And when you see man moving away from dominion, what it does is it allows ourselves to go think. I'm going to say ourselves as the church. Okay, we start to live for ourselves. We start not caring about others. We're not loving our neighbors. We're not loving our family or loving others as much as Jesus loves us. We feel persecuted if somebody takes our parking spot. I mean, it's crazy how we're becoming so selfish, so self-centric, so, single-minded about things, and losing that. And so what happens is, if we start to fall out of his dominion, we start to do things aren't in dominion, we have less impact on the realm, the world, the realm of the world, which culture is basically a realm. It's not specific person, specific program, specific. It's a collectiveness of what's creating this mass move, which would be spiritual because you can't see it. You're only seeing the results of it. You're only seeing, the symptoms of it. But we're not seeing the cause of it because there's a lot of disruption out there to say, it's because of them, it's because of that, it's because of this. No, it's become multiple verticals. But it all comes down to one thing. Man, what are we doing? So, this country is blessed for 200 years because it was under God's principles. It was a collective effort of generations of good men who lived under God's principles. Fact is, the more good men you have, the less government you need. Well, what are we seeing? Right in front of our eyes. The government is continuing to grow and grow. Why? Because good men are either being pushed out or are not choosing to go in or becoming corrupt. So what happens is now the realm becomes corrupted because there's no good men or very few good men in there to hold God's principles in there, which is our responsibility. Again, fall out of God's will, principles, dominion, we have anti-God. So, what can we do about it? And this is old men, not just, 18 and 34. It's our responsibility as old geezers to identify these things and bring it out, and then to help our future, which is Gen Z. These guys are the ones, 18 and 34, who are our future, and they're not even getting out of the house. It affects everything, especially economically, because if they're not generating revenue to put back into the the financial system, they're waiting 30 years versus 20, waiting to get to a mid-30s or hit 40 before they start, when they should be in their early 20s when they're starting. That affects everybody worldwide, by the way. So, we have dominion. What can we do? We take dominion over ourselves. That's the first thing. Dominion over ourselves. Our responsibility to stay healthy. It's our responsibility to make sure we're not deceived. It's our responsibility to make sure we don't enter lifestyles or addictions and things that can go ahead and destroy us. Okay? We want to live and have life, not death and misery. That's why you're seeing so much depression and so much suicide, because our eyes are looking down or looking in the darkness. You need to look at the light, look at the opportunities, look at the future. Not only for your future, but all around your future. Because it's our responsibility of men. Okay? Then we have to do is go to our families. We need to protect our families. But we also need to be resourceful and to look at the things of the world that could hurt our family, our daughters, our sons, our wives. It's our responsibility to bring those things up and say, hey, avoid this, watch that. And what is the biggest thing we need to do? Bring Jesus into your home. Protect you. Guide you. Look to for knowledge. Look to for a resource of love. Because it really comes down to love. You're not seeing that anymore. People want to see, if somebody cuts in front of you, instead of you flipping the finger, that you're going, hey, sorry, my bad. Or just smile and let them do it if it's something they did on their own. Whatever. That's love. And then people get curious. Why is that guy deal? What makes him tick? Then you can have opportunity to show him, well, this is why. Because I'm at peace. So then it's our responsibility for dominion over our job or our businesses, okay? If I want to do that job, I'm going to be able to provide for my family. If I do it well and I help it grow, then I'm going to provide more opportunity for other people. If I have a business, I want to continue to grow so I can create more opportunity to help people. That's what it comes down to. And then, of course, what I do is leadership, and that in our communities have dominion over it. What we can do as an individual is get more involved with your school, board meetings, or get more involved with your local faith-based church organization, to volunteer more, to get more involved in the local events like, your fairs and that, to be able to be that light in the darkness. Those are all the things. And this is how things begin to change. This is the simplicity of it. You take out all the religious thought, look at everybody's trying to find something wrong with everybody else is saying. You go back to the truth and just know that starts with me, okay, as a man. And I believe that if I do this, and then my buddies and my friends and my other influence I have, and those, and they'll do well, it will change the world, okay? It will change society. That's how it works, from the foundations to the root. I believe we go back to basics, that we can change this world, and God will bless you, your family, and everybody else around you, everyone else, because of his love coming through you. So I just appreciate you guys listening to me on this, and apply what God has showed us. Show our love.